Next up, we're looking at question 6. And question 6, this is another one where the math in it isn't really hard, but it's easy to do too much work if you don't really read what it's saying. It says, among the possibilities that meet all government criteria, Francisco decides he must choose the fastest acceptable option. How long will it take the train to travel from Montreal to Trois-Rivières? So way back before, you had to figure out what the fastest train was. And that was in a previous question, question 1. And when you were doing that, you figured out that the fastest train was the Rapido, 500 kilometers an hour. And so now that you know that you're dealing with a speed of 500 kilometers an hour, then you just have to figure out how long will it take the train to travel from Montreal to Trois-Rivières. You were already determined way back in question 2 that the length of the track would be 128 kilometers an hour. So this question, it's really about marshaling the information that you have. Like, for example, finding that information that it's 500 kilometers an hour is the fastest speed. That's one you got in question 1. And finding that the distance is 128 kilometers, like you did in question 2. If you've got those all lined up, then you just say to yourself, 500 kilometers, and again, watch me do what I've been doing over and over, per 1 hour, turning it into a fraction just explicitly so I know what I'm doing. 500 kilometers in 1 hour means how much time to travel the distance to Trois-Rivières. So let me line it up. I've got my equal sign, I'm making a proportion, I've got distance on the top of this fraction over here, time on the bottom. And I'm saying how long will it take to travel to Trois-Rivières. What's the information I know? I know the distance to Trois-Rivières because I found it in a previous question is 128 kilometers. So I'm going to match that up with the top here because these guys are both distance. 128 kilometers matching up with the 500 kilometers. And now I use this information that I have, these 3 parts of the proportion that I do have, to find the missing one that I don't. And the way I do this, I do 128 kilometers times 1 hour divided by 500 will give me the answer. Or you could say to yourself, if I'm going from 500 to 128, then what am I doing to that to make that happen? Let me do the same thing to 1 hour. I think for most of you guys here, doing 128 times 1 divided by 500 will work. Now be careful. In order for this to work, I have to make sure that my units here, kilometers and kilometers, are the same if I'm going to be using the fish method here. If that isn't the case, if I have this in meters or millimeters or whatever it is, that's not going to work. Luckily here, everything's in kilometers on top, so if I do this here, I will get my answer in hours. Now be very careful. When I do this here, I do 128 times 1 divided by 500. 128 divided by 500 is not super easy to do because you have to do 128 divided by 500. But if you think of it as some equivalent fractions, right, you'd say, well, that's kind of the same thing as let me double both of those to get it over 1,000. That's going to be 256 divided by 1,000. Right, you see that's just 128 times 2, 500 times 2. And if I have 256 divided by 1,000, then it's pretty easy for me to turn that into a decimal. That's just 0.256 hours. Now, the 0.256 hours is where it can get a little tricky because whenever you get an answer for hours in decimal, your brain plays tricks on you. You say to yourself, okay, I found my answer at 0.256 hours. That's in this question, it's not specifying to give your answer in any other format. Typically, my expectation is 2 decimal places, so it would be 0.26 hours. But let's just pretend the question was specifically asking, give your answer in hours, minutes, and seconds. And I say that because this is the kind of thing that people have trouble with. If you need to turn 0.256 hours into hours, minutes, and seconds, the kind of tricks that your brain plays on you, it says, oh, well, this is 256 minutes. That doesn't make any sense, but your brain will sometimes tell you that because it's stressful. You're writing a SIT prob, you forget, basic things. And so you'd say, oh, that's 256 minutes, and then, well, let me just divide that by 60. That means 4 hours and 16 minutes and no seconds. That's my answer. No. Here's what you do. If you've got some number here, like let's say this was 10.256 hours, first say to yourself, that's a little more than 10 hours. My final answer should be 10 hours and something. Okay? That may seem like an unnecessary step, but it actually helps. Okay? Here, my answer should be more than 0 hours, because it's more than 0, but less than 1 hour. So if I'm getting an answer that's more than 1 hour, I've definitely screwed up. Now here's what you do. If there's a number in front like this, or 3.256 hours, just take that 3 away, say, okay, it's 3 hours and 0.256 of an hour. Here you don't have to do that, but just in case you run into that, you want to be able to do that. Now you're just finding out what is 0.256 of an hour. A lot of you guys find it easier to think of it as what's 25.6% of an hour. That's what you're doing. And the way you figure it out is you just do 0.256 times the number of minutes in an hour. Right? 0.256 times 60 minutes. So if I do that, 60 times 0.256, let me do it like this, 0.256 times 60, then I'm going to actually get really messy with the paintbrush here. 6 times 0 is 0, 5 times 0 is 0. These are all going to be zeros, right? 0.256 times 0. And then 6 times 6 is 36, so I'll write a 6 here and a 3 up there. 5 times 6 is 30, so I add that 3, I have 33. I put that there and I put a 3 up here. 2 times 6 is 12, add a 3 on is 15. So I've got 1536. And if I add all the zeros here, let me just move this up. I have 0, 6, 3, 5, 1. And there's 3 decimal places, so 1, 2, 3. 15.36 minutes. So I've got 0 hours and 15.36 minutes. So far this is sounding pretty good, because remember how I said it should be more than 0 but less than 1, right? Like 25.6%, that's about a quarter, and this looks like about a quarter of an hour. But if the question's asking me to give you an answer, not just in hours and minutes, but hours, minutes, and seconds, then that 0.36 of a minute there, I want to turn that into seconds. So here we can do what I was trying to show you over here, but here we have an actual example. What's 15.36 minutes expressed in minutes and seconds? Here's what you do. Get rid of the 15, right? Because you know your answer should be between 15 minutes and 16 minutes. So 15 minutes and some seconds. Let me take the 15 out of the situation. I have now 0 hours, 15 minutes, and 0.36 of a minute. And I've just got to turn that 0.36 of a minute into seconds. How do I do that? This is 36%. What's 36% of a minute? Figure it out. Do 60 times 0.36. And if you do that, you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to get clumsy again with the paintbrush. Actually, this is going to be easier if I do 36 times 0.36 times 60, but it'll work like this. 0 times 36 is, 0 times 6 is 0, 6 times 6 is 36. And then I do 0 times 3 is 0, 6 times 3 is 18. And then I add those numbers up. I end up with 0, 6, 11. So I carry the 1, I have 2, 2160. 2 decimal places. So 21.6 seconds. That's what 0.36 of a minute is. So my answer, if I'm asked to give it in hours, minutes, and seconds, it would be 0 hours, 15 minutes, and 21.6 seconds. All right. Now, really all that this question was asking was to set this up 500 kilometers for 1 hour. That's the speed I got from question 1. And then 128 kilometers, that's the distance I got from question 2. Find the missing point in this proportion, and I'd get 0.26 hours if that's all it's asking. But in case you have to turn it into minutes and seconds, that's how you would do it.